Jacob. I'm a Norse pagan, and today I want to talk about the Norse god or goddess of winter. The reason I want to talk about this is because it snowed, so of course I want to talk about the Norse god of winter. And this has been something that's always perplexed me, because it seems to be something that isn't so tangible, isn't so concrete, is for a northern religion to be based in Scandinavia, to be based in a place where they get limited sunlight, long winters. It seems like there isn't a lot of talk about winter. Like, we know a lot about Yule, that's great, but the actual winter months, it seems like we don't have a lot of record of, for the most part. And that seems really interesting to me. Now, another thing to note is that when I say the god or goddess of winter, this doesn't affect Norse paganism as much. This mostly comes from Greek influences, because the Greek religion and the Greek mythology, from what I understand, is more direct about what the gods themselves are gods of. Whereas in the Norse pantheon, I mean, shoot, you look at like a god like Thor. I mean, Thor at first, yes, he's the thunder god, but I mean, you have Alvasmal, a story about Thor getting into like a wisdom spewing match with, I think it was a dwarf, and it's because he wanted to take his daughter away. So that's not just a simple factor. That shows that Thor has wisdom. Thor is also a warrior, fights giants. He's an adventurer, but we also know he's the god of the hearth, and he's the the god of family and fatherhood. And so he's all these aspects. And so to say that there's a singular god or goddess of winter is difficult, and maybe not entirely true or something we should be looking for. But that's what we're going to be exploring in today's video. So I'm going to put up right here a poll that I put up on YouTube, which I've been loving these YouTube polls because it gets so much interaction. I think the last time when I checked this one had 2,200 votes. So it's been a great way to get a nice idea for what people believe. So I asked what people believe to be the god or goddess of winter within the Norse myth and within the Norse faith. And quite surprisingly, it was more split. I mean, even when I was doing this list, I was surprised by how many different deities people thought were the Norse gods. So you have, I am blind. Firstly, I put on the list Skadi, because that was the one I knew of when I came into the faith. That's the one that I thought of the most, and she also had the most votes at 77% of the votes. The next one I have considered more, one I've heard more, which is Uller, which we know so little about, and we're about to find out. So you have Uller at 8% of the votes. It's not that much more, but definitely people think that Uller. And then you have even Frigg. I've seen Frigg as referenced as the goddess of winter, which I was like, what? That's crazy. I've never heard of that before. And then we have Hodr. Is it Hodr? Is it really Hodr? Because it's like, I mean, it's going to be hard to take this seriously, but I'm going to say Hodr. He also was mentioned as being one of the gods of winter at 4% of the votes, and then 5% said other. And I got a slew of comments all saying different things, some people defending wholeheartedly that the gods that they said are most definitely Uller is the god of winter, most definitely Skadi is the god of winter. So it seems like, with the religion in general, with the faith in general, we have inconsistencies. Because there's several different ways to look at it. One, if there is a true god or goddess of winter, we don't actually know. There's nothing in the Prose Edda that says this is the god or goddess of winter. Absolutely nothing in the Poetic Edda that says this is the god or goddess of winter. And then in this book, Tales of Norse Mythology, it says indefinitely Uller is the god of winter. And then when you look up online, when you Google search the god of winter in Norse mythos, at first you see Skadi. Oh, okay, well that's probably what I saw when I first started. That's what most people do, is they search away. And then you start scrolling. And before you know it, there's an article about how Uller is the god of winter. Oh, well, okay, that's fine. Then you scroll down further and it says Hodr is the god of winter. What is going on? And then I talked to people from Germany and they're like, well, no, Frigg is the goddess of winter. What is happening? Who do I give offerings to during the winter months? Well, firstly, before we dive into that, let me show you what we do have as far as the source material for what we can go off of. Poetic Edda. This could be because it's the Crawford translation. Crawford, as many know, is a no BS kind of guy, which is why I like his writing. But if you go to the very back here and reference like the gods, like Uller, for instance. I hate gloves. Here is what Jackson Crawford says, according to the Poetic Edda, we know about Uller. A little-known god. Guthrum claims that Attila swore an oath on Uller's ring in Alakvita. Okay, great. Well, what does it say about Skadi? What does he say about old Skadi in here? A goddess of skis and snowshoes. There's a little something. born a giant, daughter of Thiassi, and wife of Njord. Okay, well, at least we got skis and snowshoes, at least. And I have done a full research video on Skadi before, in my video called How to Research the Gods. And most of what we know about Skadi comes from the Prose Edda and Gylfaginning. So we're going to dive into this a little bit, but mostly just a recap of Skadi's story is that she's from the mountains, loves the mountains, she's a Jotun, marries Njord, doesn't go well because he wants to live on the beach, she wants to live in the mountains. She doesn't like living on the beach, and he doesn't like living in the mountains, so they eventually divorce. There are rumors that Skadi then married Ullr, but it doesn't seem definitive whether she did or not. Now, once again, yes, she loves mountains, but it does not say she is the goddess of winter. It just says that she loves mountains, she loves skiing, and stuff like that. Now, getting into the Prose Edda, it seems like if you read one thing from the Prose Edda, you should read Gylfaginning. I find this to be a terribly boring read. There's so many Christian influences, but I am finding now that there is a lot that we would not know at all if it wasn't for the Prose Edda. It particularly seems like Gylfaginning. So, here's what it says about Ullr. Ullr is the name of the son of Sif, stepson of Thor. He is such a good archer and skier that no one can compete with him. He is also beautiful in appearance and has a warrior's accomplishments. He's a good one to pray to in single combat. Okay, well, he also is a skier. Seems like him and Skadi should get together, which is what a lot of people seem to think, and which would make total sense. But then you also have here in the same section of Gylfaginning talking about Hod, or Hodr. Hod is the name of one of the As. He is blind, only too strong is he, and the gods prefer that this As, or Aesir, did not need to be named, for the work of his hands will long be kept in the mind among gods and men. And the work of his hands, I believe, is a reference to his killing of Balder through Loki's treachery. But yes, he is blind, and he is the brother of Balder. And so I think that's where the Hodr, or Hod, connection comes with winter. So pulling it in over here to this book. If you've heard me talk about this book, Tales in Norse Mythology, you've heard me, it has so much information, but it gives no sources in which it gets this information from. From what I understand, this is an older translation, like this book was originally printed a long time ago. So here we dive into a little bit more information about Ullr. And by a little bit more, I mean a lot more. Ullr ends up getting 2.5 pages of information, which is a lot considering the fact it seems like we don't have a lot of written information down about Ullr. And right here at the start, it says Ullr, the god of winter. Boom, it declares it right away that he is the god of winter. Okay, great. Ullr, the winter god, was the son of Sif and the stepson of Thor, like we saw in the Prose Edda. Ullr loved the cold and delighted traveling over the country on his broad snowshoes on glittering skis. So right there, that seems to be what we have from the Prose Edda. And then you go further down, and all of a sudden you get into stuff that's like, wait, where did this come from? As a winter god, Ullr, or Ollr, as he was also called, was considered second only to Odin, whose place he usurped during his absence in the winter months of the year. During this period, he exercised full sway over Asgard and Midgard. Like, whoa, what? This book is claiming that Ullr took over for Odin when Odin, I guess, went on the wild hunt, and then it references the fact that Odin would come back, kick him off the throne, and he would go back to the mountains and wait for Odin to leave again. Again, an interesting thing, and would definitely fit in with the winter concept a little bit in the sense that he comes in and takes over during the winter months. And then it goes further into saying Ullr was also considered a god of death and was supposed to ride in the wild hunt. But wait, if he's riding in the wild hunt, then how is he taking over for Odin? These are the questions you get when you read the many books that we have written about the gods, as you see these inconsistencies. Lastly, by the Scandinavians, Ullr was said to have married Skadi, Njord's divorced wife, the female personification of winter and cold, and their tastes were so congenial that they lived in perfect harmony together. Lastly, the last section I'll read of this is it goes further into the winter concept of Hodr a little bit. For then the days began to grow shorter, and the rule of light, Balder, gradually yielded to the ever-encroaching darkness of Hodr. So it seems like this has a lot of concepts written in it. So while it does declare, according to this book, that Ullr is the god of winter, it does bring in the fact that Skadi is the female version of the winter, and then it also brings in the idea that Hodr is the god of darkness during the winter months, and him and Balder balance each other out. Again, this is, I wonder where it gets this information from. I wish it had sourced this. If anyone knows where this information came from, please let me know. Where does this leave us? That is the question of the lifetime. As practitioners of this faith in the modern era, where does reading these source materials get us? Because this is confusing. Undeniably, this makes practice of this religion so much harder, because you have statistics like this where most people seem to think that Skadi is the goddess of winter. And then you read books like this that say, no, Uller is the god of winter. And then you read other sources saying Hoder is the god of winter. So who do you actually give to when you want to celebrate winter? I completely forgot about Frigg. So Frigg is a very weird grab of information. So Frigg, let's see, is referenced by many names. One of the names is the White Lady. So in some accounts, Frigg is attested to a Germanic goddess, Bertha, or the White Lady, or I've seen several different other names that it was like, this is basically Frigg, and it is said in folk tales that this White Lady was responsible for the first snow of the year. And it is thanked that she is thanked for the first snow. So she's connected to snow in a weird way. Again, this is something I learned not just the other day. I don't have concrete evidence. I'm still trying to find stuff about it. But now I'm sitting here, there's another contender in the arena for the god or goddess of winter. So where does this leave you? If you want to give to the winter gods, you've read the source material, you're outside at a place like this, who do you give to? And I think the answer, like many things in this faith, is you're going to have to find out for yourself. You're going to have to find out who you connect with. We can look at the information we do have. So, when to give to Skadi? Well, it seems like she's connected to mountains from the stories that we have about her. She's connected to skiing. She's connected to hunting. She's connected to wolves, it seems. I've seen reference that she always had like a Siberian husky type thing with her. So perhaps if you're near the mountains, you give to Skadi. And it seems like Uller is more of the woods. So if you're in the woods during the winter months, perhaps you give to Uller. But again, this book seems to make Uller out to be not that great of a person. But at the same time, I mean, he literally usurped the throne of Odin, it seemed like, when Odin wasn't there. I don't know. But it seems like if you want to connect to Uller, you come to a place in the woods. What about Hoder? Well, it seems like if you're giving a general offering, or you're invoking the idea of winter, the idea of darkness, which winter months there is more dark, then you go to Hoder, and you thank Hoder for the darkness, or you talk to him based on it, but it seems a little bit more vague. And in general, it seems like Balder worship is also very vague. I don't see a lot of people, within my practice, within my eyes on the community, I don't see a lot of people that follow Balder, and I assume there's very few people that follow Hoder. And so the actual worship of daylight and darkness, I'm not sure. I don't know how to do that, and I don't know if that's the route you want to take. It might be, but I have no idea. And then you have the Frigg concept, the Frigg of the first snow. So maybe she's not the goddess of winter, but maybe she is the goddess of the first snow. Go out during the first snow of the year and perform a ritual and see what happens. Call out to Frigg, gather up some snow, maybe leave that as an offering, first snow of the year, put into a bowl, let it melt in your house or something like that. Get weird with it, get creative, experiment. Because I think that's something that a lot of people are scared to do in this faith, and there's definitely within limits. You don't want to go too crazy with it. But, during a winter month, we've had plenty of snow this year. Go out a few times to a few different locations and communicate to each one of these gods. Because what it seems like, that really the answer is there is no one god or goddess of winter. There seems to be several that are connected to it. Much like the springtime, it doesn't seem like there is one goddess of spring. There, you can have, celebrate Freya. You can celebrate, Ostara, Esther. You can even call out to Freyr. You can call out to Suna. You can call out to many gods of spring. You can call out to many gods of summer. Same thing with the fall. So, it seems like this is the beauty of polytheism, but also the greatest pain of polytheism is the fact that you have so many gods, but there are multiple gods for multiple occasions. So it's going to be up to you to figure out which one you give to in certain moments. And same thing with like the wild hunt and things like that around Yule, is you'll want to give offerings to Odin. You'll want to give offerings to, the seer, which is what I've read. And then maybe you also give an offering to Hoder for the long night. For if you're doing it on the solstice, you can talk about the darkest night of the year and invoke Hoder. As I end every research-based video, what is my interpretation of this? As I said, I think you should research everything you can on these gods, because even though I don't know if I trust this book, it still gives some information that is quite interesting. I would love to know the sources. If anyone knows where it's getting this information from, please let me know. But it seems like from what people like Jackson Crawford have said is we actually don't know that much about Uller, but somehow this person's saying a lot about him. And so I hope to find the source where this has come from. So until then, take it with a grain of salt. I can't confirm or deny if Uller takes the throne of Odin during the winter months. But if you want to connect to Uller during the winter months, why not invoke that within your ritual? Why not talk about it? Why not bring it up and see what resonates with you? Ultimately, we follow this religion, we follow this path and these gods because there's a real connection there. So take what we have, roll it into something like a ritual, and see what happens. Personally, to me this year, I've been connecting more to Skadi. I climbed a mountain this year, like a really tall mountain, like the third tallest mountain in the Appalachians. I climbed it, and I definitely felt Skadi while doing it. Now, I ended up dedicating the climb itself to Thor, but we definitely had some Skadi experiences while climbing. And so I've definitely connected to her a little bit more. Obviously, I gave an offering to her at the beginning of winter, and now it just so happens to also be a really big winter. I'm not saying I controlled the weather, but like it's awfully weird that for 5 years we've had no winter. I give one offering to Skadi at the beginning of winter, and all of a sudden I get a winter. I don't know. What? That's kind of the weird thing about this faith is you're like, did I make it snow more? What's going on here? Most likely, nothing I did would have changed the aspect of the weather this year. It was going to happen the way it was meant to happen. But the fact that I gave an offering to Skadi at the beginning of winter makes it more personal for me. This winter has become more personal. Isn't that special? It doesn't need to become like, I created winter, I made it snow more. But you made it more personal. And I think that's why we follow this faith, is because it makes living in this natural world more personal. So find what winter god or goddess works for you. It seems like you have a few, but it definitely doesn't seem like there is one. So I hope this helps. Hope it improves your personal practice. Remember, read multiple sources. Watch multiple videos. Look at multiple people. There's so many opinions out there. There's so many people that will tell you that they are 100% right and that there is no other way to accept it, but that's just simply not true. There are so many different ways to look at this faith and religion. As long as we honor the sources, honor the ancestors, honor where we came from, and continue to learn, explore, and grow, I think that's what truly matters. But folk, until next time, till the hall.